Your body has an injury prevention policy, and on this week's episode of the Exercises Health Podcast, we're discussing what that is and what you can do about it. We're going to cue our introduction, and we're going to dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health Podcast, brought to you by Muscle Activation Schaumburg and Exercise for Life Studios, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset. And the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And today we are discussing this idea of the injury prevention policy that your body has. All of our bodies have an injury prevention policy, but some of ours may be a little bit, we'll say, stronger or better equipped than others. And so we need to identify what this injury prevention policy is and what we can do about it to really beef up our bodies.
Now, to highlight some of these points, we're going to be sharing one of our personal stories from the weekend. So this past weekend was the Thanksgiving weekend here in the U.S. And Charlie, in his hometown, they do some really interesting, cool stuff. And he's going to share what he did. And then we'll talk about what we did with the muscle system and what we did with the body's insurance policy, injury prevention insurance policy, and the changes that we saw from doing this.
Yeah, so in my hometown, at my high school, there is an alumni basketball tournament. So all the alumni of the basketball program, you play with your graduating class or people around your graduating class, and you play the other people from other graduating classes. And so this would be my first time playing like live 5-on-5, on an indoor court and everything like that in like 6.5 years. Like it had been a while. Now, obviously, like I work out a lot. I have been, doing stuff on the basketball court quite a bit recently. Been working on my jumping, everything like that. But this was the first time that I was going to be playing live, kind of 5-on-5 basketball. And to be honest, like there was definitely a little bit of potential concern in my mind of like, okay, well, what happens if I do get injured? Like, what does this look like if I do actually hurt myself? But I kind of had to like walk through the process of being like, all right, you know what? Right now, you are strong, you are athletic, you are physically fit. Like if something happens, it happens. But you have put in the time, you have put in the effort, you have put in the work to get your body to a place where you can do this thing and you'll be okay. All right, so that was my mindset going in. The second play of the very first game, I catch the outside of my shoe on the court and twist my ankle. So like right away, like a minute into the first game, twist my left ankle. And now, don't get me wrong, if you know my health history at all, it's not the first time that I've twisted my ankle. In fact, I've done it quite a bit. But it was the first time in a while that I twisted my ankle. And anyways, I was a little bit not happy about that. But, in traditional form and fashion, I tied up my shoe even tighter and just kept playing. Well, about 10 minutes later, I was running through the lane and foot kind of slipped on the ground and my left knee got like hyperextended and got, pushed into that hyperextended position. And that really hurt. So, within about 10 minutes of starting, I twisted my ankle and I had hyperextended my knee, but I kept playing. And so, anyways, at halftime of that first game, I did some isometric exercises for my knee to try to help it feel better because, truth be told, like it really wasn't feeling good. The ankle I could play through, the knee really wasn't feeling good, and I was more concerned than not that something serious could happen if, I didn't do something about it to try to help it out, bring some stability to it. Anyways, got through that first game, but my body was pretty beat up from a joint perspective. I went to sleep that night, woke up the next morning, body still felt terrible, tried doing some stuff on my own, got it feeling a little bit better, but then fortunately, Julie was able to get me on the table for MAT, and no joke, within 30 minutes, everything changed. Everything changed from how my ankle was doing, how my knee was doing, the confidence that I had within my body, the stability and the strength that I felt within my system. I mean, these were two incidences that were completely random, completely, fluke things. Just kind of caught the outside of my shoe and twisted my ankle, and then, again, foot kind of hit a slippery part of the floor and hyperextended my knee. Like very kind of random things that happened. And I was concerned kind of going into that second day that if I were to play in the way that my body was, that I was actually going to severely injure myself. More so my knee than my ankle. My ankle hurt, but I felt like I could play on it. My knee I was really concerned about. And fortunately, like I said, within about 30 minutes, you were able to take care of both of them using muscle activation techniques.
That's right. Yeah. Once you hopped on the table, it was very clear that his body was protecting both the knee and the ankle. And so within that, hour of time, 30 minutes, whatever we were doing, I was working on you, reinstating stability with the neuromuscular system. You see, when we do muscle activation techniques, it's very different than like exercise, where it's like you want to go to the gym and do squats one day and be like, great, now my glutes are strong, and like, noticeably, like I'm feeling so much better and everything's, there's a training effect, right? With MAT, we can change things really quickly because we're working with the neuromuscular system rather than just trying to stimulate muscles with, weights and stuff like that. So yeah, after we were able to reactivate a lot of the inhibited muscles that were kind of overstressed from that first basketball game, your body was doing great. I mean, motion opened up. Yeah. You were feeling like you weren't like walking weird and stiff anymore. So that was really cool.
No, literally as soon as I stood up off the table and took those first few steps, this is a completely different body that I'm operating with now. And then I went and played 2 more games after that, completely symptom-free, absolutely no issues. Played, the entirety of both of those games. I did not come out once. Yeah. They were 40-minute games, so played an additional 80 minutes of full 5-on-5, running, cutting, jumping, sliding, just full-out basketball. Absolutely no issues. Afterwards, after I finished those 2 games, absolutely no issues with the knee and ankle. My muscles felt tired because I just done like 80 minutes of hard working out. But, so my body felt, a level of exhaustion and fatigue in that regard, but nothing from a joint perspective. And then, honestly, I woke up the next morning and didn't feel any soreness, didn't feel anything weird with my knee, didn't feel anything weird with my ankle, and honestly, didn't even feel anything weird with my muscles in terms of fatigue, like I said, soreness, pain, or just feeling like I just played, 2 hard games the day before. So it was honestly like, I've had a lot of MAT done on my body, and I've had a lot of experiences of like, all right, something gets tweaked, and then, it gets better in a relatively short time using MAT. Because I've done enough MAT to kind of always be just like 1 session away from feeling really good. But I have to say, like, hands down, this was the most dramatic turnaround that I personally have ever experienced within my own body, of just the level of uncertainty that I felt for my knee and for my ankle kind of going into that second game. And then, it was literally 15 minutes on the knee, 15 minutes on the ankle. And there was some time kind of working through some stuff, testing some other stuff with the trunk and the hips just to make sure there wasn't any additional compensation. All that was solid. All that was testing really well. But it was that quick of a turnaround. Literally 30 minutes of just focused work, 15 on the knee, 15 on the ankle. And it completely changed not only the sensation I was feeling, but like I said, the confidence I had in my body. And then I could go and play. Like I said, I played 80 minutes of hard basketball on top of that with absolutely no issue.
One thing I thought was so cool from, obviously living that story with you, Charlie, is like after the first game, when you really came in fresh that day. I mean, you had a rest day before and all that. The amount of like fatigue overall that your body had, plus those injuries, relative to like after the second day playing 2 games, you were definitely tired, but it seemed just like more like, okay, this is just like I worked my body really hard versus like I'm pretty much going close to injury. But there's a couple things that I want to highlight with all these things. A lot of times people will come and get MAT, and the idea is like usually you come and do something when you're uncomfortable enough, right? But the real thing is that you have like some serious compensation going on, and with MAT we get to the bottom of that compensation. But the goal after that is not for you to stay in a bubble and not do anything. The goal of getting MAT is so that you can use your life and use your body to stay healthy, meaning you have to go back out there and work. And I love, Charlie, how you kept referring to, like, I had the confidence that, like, I could go do that work. And that is something that we hope to give all of our clients when they come in for muscle activation techniques. Is great. We love that your back is not hurting anymore. We love that your ankle feels so much better. We love that you can roll your ankle and have no symptoms. We love that you can do all those things. But really, we want to see that you are now pursuing your life, pursuing your health with the confidence that, like, hey, my body can handle this. And when I do feel those random tweaks that come up, whether it's as intense as Charlie's story or not, you have this insurance policy of muscle activation techniques. Like, hey, I just need to go get a tune-up and I'm ready to, to work it again. Versus your life just continually breaking you down and doing less and less things over time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit it right on the head, Julie, where it's like, the goal isn't to get you to just live in a bubble and do nothing and have this kind of, perfect state of homeostasis all the time, like within your system. It's like the goal is for you to be able to go and use your body the way you want to use it. And that is going to include, in some form or fashion, kind of stressing out your body sometimes. There's going to likely be some trauma that happens to your body sometimes, and that's okay. All right. But when those things do occur, when those tweaks, when those, borderline injuries do occur, the hope is that you have put in enough time and enough effort into building your strength, into building the function of your muscles, doing muscle activation techniques, doing strength training, that your body has some resiliency to it. That it's not like, okay, I twist my ankle on the second play of the game and then I'm just done for the weekend. Like, that would be a really lousy place to have my body be. The fact that I was able to hyperextend my knee and then play the entire rest of the game, like, to me that showed, okay, like, there was a lot of resiliency built into my body. Yes, I didn't have the confidence in my knee, but in part that could be because I know how my body felt beforehand. And I know, like, how good my body can feel. Like, we joke a lot this, that, like, we are so, like, you and I are so intolerant of our body not feeling well because we are so used to our body feeling really, really well that anytime, like, something little comes up, it's like, okay, we have to address it immediately. Because one, we know how quickly it can be addressed. And two, we know what it's like on the other side to, like, feel so well versus somebody that's, in chronic pain and has been for, a decade and a half. And it's just like, okay, well, this is just my day in and day out. Us, we're like, oh, there's something weird. Like, hey, do you have 15 minutes right now? Because, like, I need to get this addressed. Otherwise, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, we have a very low emotional tolerance for that stuff because, for the most part, we do feel really good and we know what it's like to feel really good. And we know how quickly things can be addressed when they are, and how quickly things can change symptom-wise when they are addressed right away. And I think that was one of the really cool things about this situation to me is I didn't have to wait a week to get in to see you. I didn't have to, try to, figure out when it would work, 3-4 days or whatever. It was like the next morning. We didn't do it that night because we were exhausted. We had kids to put down and we were sleeping at my parents' house, so they were all, like, revved up about that and everything, and the basketball game was really late. So there was a whole bunch of things. Just, all right, let's just get, some solid sleep. And don't get me wrong, that was helpful, but it truly was not until we spent, and I'm not, like, downplaying this, it was literally just 30 minutes of focused MAT work on the knee and on the ankle, and that changed everything. And that was able to happen right away, within 15 hours after the initial incident.
Charlie, one thing I was thinking about, because we were joking about how, like, after the game, the following day, you were, like, on the table, I was working on you, and we were laughing about that idea, like, how intolerant we are of being in pain. But I think that's also due to the fact that we have so much experience seeing people blame things that they can't change for their discomfort, like age. A really good one is, like, you're in your mid to late 30s now, so you should be having getting old symptoms, right? Like people with, like, tight backs and tight hamstrings, and it's like, well, it's just because I'm getting old. But what if we switch that? It's like, it's just because you have a muscle imbalance or you have some inactive muscle. Well, then it's like, oh, okay, well, then I guess I could be getting on to do something about that, right? And so because of this, experiences over and over and over and over and over again of people, even with diagnosed, I have tie-dye T-bands or a bursitis thing or a torn labrum or whatever, and we see how much power the muscle system and changing these muscle imbalances changes that situation, not only in terms of strength, but in mobility, in ability to move around, in ability to go live your life. Even though you have this structural inchangeable thing, there is a huge part of every body issue that is changeable, and that is the tolerance of the muscle system, is making the muscles handle things more. So it could be like, hey, after I worked on Charlie, his muscle system probably could have been more perfect if he just didn't play basketball after that. But the whole reason that we live this life is to experience our life. That was a really positive experience for Charlie, for us to watch. It was just, a tradition. It was really cool. So when you're thinking about your own life, we're not thinking, hey, I have bum knees, so I'm going to skip out on the ski trip. No, that ski trip is really meaningful. It's cool. You get to be with your family, your kids, or I'm going to skip out on this travel. So the question really never is how do I keep my muscles, as perfect as possible, but is how do I create a system that can protect them as well as possible so that I can be going and doing my living life thing, doing those meaningful things, and knowing that your body has a system, or you participate in a system that allows you to handle these time and time again.
Exactly. And so along those lines, what would that system look like for you? Based on our experience, the number one thing you can be doing on a regular basis is muscle activation techniques. It's going to help address your issues faster than anything that we've seen, is going to help get your muscles strengthened more specifically than anything we have ever experienced, and it's going to help you really feel that confidence and that strength in your body that so many people lose, especially as the years go by, especially as they move from their 30s into their 40s, into their 50s, into their 60s, and they start thinking to themselves, I don't know if I can do that anymore because I don't think my body can handle that. They may still be physically active, they still may be, working out on a regular basis, but they're like, I don't know that I can do that anymore. They're starting to lose that confidence in their bodies. For us, muscle activation techniques has been the most effective thing that we have seen at being able to combat that and say, no, actually, I do feel completely confident in my body. And you know what I also feel confident in? If my body does happen to get tweaked, I now have something that I can go to clear it up very, very quickly. And so that really for us is why MAT is the number one first stop in this discussion of how do we boost up our body's injury prevention insurance policy? What do we do? Number one is muscle activation techniques. Make sure that your muscles are functioning well. Make sure that they are strong, that they are well connected to your nervous system, so you can give yourself the best chance possible of doing the stuff that you want to do without issues. But guess what? Sometimes issues are still going to be able to come up, but you've built enough margin into your system that those issues aren't nearly as catastrophic as they otherwise could have been, and you're really just a session or two away from getting back to that feeling of confidence within your body.
That's my favorite thing about being an MAT practitioner is learning people's bodies and figuring out how can we get this so that you're doing all the things that you want and participating in life in the way you want, rather than I hear so often when clients come in and they've tried other things, it's like, oh, well, someone told me never to do that. Don't ever do, the rowing machine. That could just, whatever. Don't ever, play basketball again because that might blow out your knees. There's a lot of things that can injure you, but as much as that possibly could be true, we want to also be saying, hey, I'm also building up my body as much as I can so that I can handle more and more things in my life, and so that things that I'm trying to do, whether that's, weekend adventures or your regular daily activities, they're not weighing you down and making it so that you're unable to do as many activities as you're hoping for.
Absolutely. And then in addition to muscle activation techniques, make sure that you are prioritizing your strength training throughout your week. A minimum of 3 times a week, preferably 4 or more times a week, where you're really focused on squeezing your muscles, you're moving slow and controlled, you're controlling what areas of your body are moving and not moving, and you're staying within your symptom-free range of motion. In other words, you're applying our 4 Exercise for Life principles to every single strength training session that you do. We see time and time again that not only does this help people stay more consistent with their workouts because they're not feeling beat up, achy, injured, sore from their workouts. They're actually feeling stronger after the workouts, but it also helps them get better results from their workouts. Yes, the consistency is part of getting better results, but they are truly focused on trying to build the strength and function of their body with their workouts instead of just using their body to check their workout off their to-do list. So those two things, when it comes to boosting up, building up your body's injury prevention policy, those are the number one and number two things that we recommend across the board. Number one, muscle activation techniques. Number two, make sure you're doing your strength training where you are truly focused on building your strength, squeezing your muscles, connecting on your body, not just trying to move the weights up and down. So if you're in the Chicagoland area or willing to travel to the Chicagoland area and would like to try out muscle activation techniques for yourself, that is our specialty here at Muscle Activation Schaumburg. You can get on our schedule, you can see our availability and get yourself booked for your initial consultation and assessment by going to our website, www.matschaumburg.com. There you'll find a big green button that says Get Started. You can click that, and again, you can see our availability and schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. And if you'd like our guidance implementing the 4 Exercise for Life principles within all of your workouts, and specifically workouts that you're going to want to do from home in under 25 minutes using minimal equipment, that's exactly what we teach you to do within the Exercise for Life membership. You can get 30 days to the entire membership, all the workouts, all the programs, everything else within it, absolutely for free by going to www.exerciseforlifestudios.com. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know who has some things in their life that they're wanting to do, but they're opting not to out of fear of hurting themselves, out of fear of getting injured? And they're like, gosh, if I could just feel like a little bit more confident in my body, feel like I could boost the resiliency of my body, that if I did happen to get tweaked, I wouldn't be out for a month or 3 months or 6 months. I could be back at it in, a day or a week or just a few hours. Share this episode with them so they can understand the 2 critical steps that we encourage every single person to be taking in order to build up, again, what we're calling your body's injury prevention policy. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to us and leave us a rating and review. Not only does it help people find our podcast when they're looking for information on exercise, it also helps them find our podcast when they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.